People often consider NASCAR to be the sport where it's associated with America. That is true. It is a very American sport. However, it should never be associated with the term Republican or imagining someone that's white, that's driving a busted up pickup truck with a mullet. I mean, that is kind of true though. Before we go on further, you may be asking, what is NASCAR? Well, the short answer to that is cars go vroom vroom around a track at 200 miles per hour, wishing to die. However, there's so much more to the sport of NASCAR. There's this very brief history that you might want to know in order to appreciate the sport or even have a bit of interest in it. Long time ago, after World War I, the 18th Amendment was put into place, banning alcohol in the US. However, Americans did the most American thing ever. We said no thanks, and we had bootleggers who illegally made alcohol. However, they were not able to distribute it to people due to cops. Here came in the original drivers of NASCAR before NASCAR was created. These were young men, sometimes all the way up to their 40s, with their custom hot rods that were able to outrun the cops. However, you have to know that it wasn't just the souped up hot rods that these young men were driving that allowed them to outrun the cops. It was mainly due to their skilled driving. Then in the early 1930s, the 21st Amendment took place, where it repealed the 18th Amendment. This meant alcohol was legal and there was no need for these young men with their souped up cars and their extreme driving skills to illegally distribute alcohol. This meant they were jobless. All they had was a very good driving skill and a death wish. So what did these talented young men do with their souped up cars and a death wish? Well, they met up at Streamline Beach at Daytona, Florida and created stock car racing. This would eventually grow out to be the NASCAR we know of today. So that's the basic history, and now we skip on to the modern day NASCAR, bypassing all this important other stuff. NASCAR a couple decades ago was the motivation for manufacturing companies like Ford, Dodge, Chevy to create some of the most iconic cars of all time. A great example of that is the Plymouth Superbird, which was a copy of the Dodge Charger Daytona. And NASCAR was the reason why Dodge built it in the first place. However, NASCAR back in the day, a couple decades ago, was quite different from the modern day NASCAR. And the biggest difference is probably the cars themselves. Back then, it was considered stock car racing. That meant you had to get a car off the showroom, bring it to the race, and you race that with a couple slightly different modifications. Weight reduction, which meant taking out the passenger seat, which was useless, and adding a roll cage because a lot of people died during NASCAR races because they crashed into walls at, I don't know, 180 miles per hour. NASCAR vehicles of the modern day look very different. For example, if you look at the Ford manufacturer's Mustang, it is quite different looking than the stock Mustang you see in a showroom versus a Mustang you would see at the NASCAR race. This is because the modern day NASCAR is built completely brand new from head to toe, from bumper to bumper. They're built out of aluminum tubes. They're welded together to build the basic chassis. Then basic sheet metal is added on top to create the bodywork and the overall shape of the car. And then other little glass looking acrylic panels or stuff like that is added on to create the NASCAR you see nowadays. One of the greatest developments is probably within the engines. The engines of modern day NASCAR vehicles push out about 900 horsepower. That is 3.5 Honda Accords. If you're a science nerd, you might find this interesting. NASCAR has a lot, and I mean a lot from head to toe, to do with science, mainly physics. Because every little detail from the aerodynamics of this slight little bodywork changes, and the tiny little spoiler in the back, to the tire pressure, everything has to be perfect because the ultimate goal for a NASCAR team for building a car is to make a car that'll go around the track the fastest. Speaking of tracks, this is what a typical NASCAR racetrack looks like. It's literally just an oval. Usually NASCAR tracks are slightly different in different ways. However, most of them are about 2 miles long. It's true that NASCAR can be very boring at first. It's cars just turning left, and that's it. They just turn left all the way, turn left, straighten out, turn left, straighten out. That's all they do. I guess what I'm trying to say is the best way to learn NASCAR is to just go ahead and watch a couple races. The way I learned most about NASCAR was literally just by watching races. Most races are about 3 hours long, a length of a good football game. Once the races become interesting to you, and once you have, which is very important, once you have a driver that you root for, then it becomes enjoyable at a whole new level. The best way to start watching a race isn't to watch the full race. The best way is to just start watching highlights that the NASCAR YouTube page uploads. Those highlights are usually about 10 minutes long, and it's just a quick recap of what happened. That means significant high passes, low passes, very good crashes, and stuff like that. And after that, you might get interested and you might want to watch a full 2.5, 3 hour long race. Well, in that case, usually you'll have to go to Fox Sports and pay for a monthly or an annual subscription, because we all live in South Korea and we don't have NASCAR on cable, which is terrible. However, the price isn't cheap. Though it is very illegal, what I recommend and what I do is, it's illegal, but it's worth it. See, the main purpose of this mini-series that I'm doing for PTV is to get more people interested in NASCAR, because I personally think that it's a beautiful sport. It is rough, a lot of drivers fight with fists, and wrecks happen. However, that's just a part of the whole NASCAR experience. It's enjoyable. Those little things make you excited. And the best way to get really excited to a whole new level, as I mentioned, is to, well, not just watching a race, but having your favorite driver. For example, my favorite driver is Kyle Busch. He is the reason why I got so excited about watching full NASCAR races, because with that hope and that anticipation that my favorite driver and the driver of my choice will hopefully win the race, that anticipation really allows you to watch a full race and enjoy it.